It's Monday, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And so I am the generational talent in Garden State Media, and your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday to all of you. Again, we appreciate you tuning in here on this, the 4th of May in 2026. And again, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It really helps the show grow and shows your support for fearless independent media here, folks, with Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV. And of course, if you haven't done so already, check us out on Spotify or SoundCloud. You can download the episodes and take us with you anywhere at any time, whether, hey, listen, the weather's getting a little bit warmer, you're walking your dog more often, doing grocery shopping, going for that afternoon run after work, whatever it is you're doing. I'm sure you have your smartphone with you. Take us and take Jersey First TV with you anywhere at any time. And of course, folks, I can't say enough, quite frankly, about your support for Jersey First TV, always educating, navigating the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. Brand new episodes of Real Talk air every Monday. Check your local listings for start times. And of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap have returned to Jersey First TV. Check them out on all of our social media platforms. Folks, as I did say before, it is Monday, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Yes, I am that Star Wars nerd. Too bad if you don't like it. But yes, folks, May the 4th be with you for all you Star Wars fans who have really helped raise a generation and have become diehard Star Wars fans. I am one until the very end. And I know many of you have enjoyed Star Wars Day on all your social media. Folks, a jam-packed final thoughts today and a special comment, of course. Great traffic for the month of April. Again, I cannot do without all of you. Nothing boosted, no paid ads, folks, all organic on this program. Over 100,000 views for the month of April. And again, I cannot do it without all of you at home, to all my family and friends, even the haters who tune in. I know you love doing so every Monday night. And again, those numbers right behind me are because of you, and I thank you. More on that later during the special comment. And folks, of course, during the final thoughts, I'll talk about the usual bad actors here in New Jersey. And folks, there's no shortage of them, whether it's in academia, whether it's in media, whether it's in activism, or elected officials or government employees. There's no shortage of them here in New Jersey. But of course, folks, when we talk about bad actors and let's say the use of sort of elected officials, folks, Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala come to mind. I'll tell you why their latest antics are not to be taken seriously later on during final thoughts. And speaking about not taken seriously, well, when we talk about that, of course, we talk about sort of the virtue signaling that went on last weekend during May Day in Jersey City. And of course, when we talk about those clowns, we talk about other clowns like David Cruz. More on that, folks. A jam-packed final thoughts. You want to definitely tune in for that. And of course, during a special comment, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I want to send a shout out to my parents, Fernando and Cita Uribe, celebrating 53 years of marriage today. So happy anniversary, Mom and Dad, to many, many more as the beautiful couple that I know. More on that during a special comment later during the broadcast. Folks, it is election season, and all I've been doing is talking to candidates along the campaign trail, running for House seats, running for Senate seats, running for any municipal seat or county commissioner seat during this election cycle as the June 2nd primary is coming up. And why not talk to one of the more interesting candidates running in the Republican primary for the United States Senate to hopefully unseat Spartacus, the Timu version of Barack Obama over there, the senior, God help us, United States Senator Cory Booker, but a guy who's got a real shot at beating him if he gets through the primary. Folks, he's my good friend and the guy with the best head of hair in New Jersey, politics, media, whatever, the best head of hair I've ever seen in a guy in New Jersey. He's my good friend, Alex Zdan, joins us live on Real Talk. Alex, welcome back, sir.
Good afternoon, Fernando, and God bless your parents on their anniversary. Happy anniversary to your mom.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Again, my mom was ecstatic to see you on the air today. She's like, oh my goodness, that guy again? Woo! I was like, okay. I was like, Mom,
she's best.
Relax, take it easy. But Alex, good to see you, man. And obviously, I know you've been busy. You're on the campaign trail literally right now as we're doing this episode live. And I know, you've had a lot of experience in New Jersey media and politics. We'll get to that in a little bit. But quite frankly, it's a wide open field here in the Republican primary with, coming up on June 2nd to see who will challenge Cory Booker coming up this November in a time when, Democrats are a little cocky about this election cycle, but they shouldn't be too overconfident because especially someone like Cory Booker, who's done nothing in Washington for years. Why do you feel you're the best shot in the Republican primary coming up on June 2nd to ultimately unseat Cory Booker?
Well, like you said, Cory Booker has had no accomplishments to speak of, short of getting himself likes on social media or eyeballs on TV, and I'm uniquely positioned to expose who he really is as the only person in this race who has actually interviewed Spartacus before, who's actually talked to him, who knows his tricks, who knows how to expose him. Thanks to my career in the media, I've been up and down every inch of this state. I know it well. I love this state. I want people to have confidence that they can stay in New Jersey and make a better life for their children and their grandchildren. I'm an investigative reporter who has fought corruption, municipal corruption, city corruption, rural corruption, all across this state and this region. And I am the person to show the corruption of Senator Cory Booker, who is bought and paid for by Big Pharma and the healthcare industry.
And also by AIPAC, by the way. I know he's gotten some grief about that during this election cycle, even by some progressives in his own party, which, are coming down on him. But unfortunately, Alex, here in New Jersey, that vote blue no matter who crowd just, faithlessly continue to vote Democrat. And it has not brought them good results, whether it's at the federal level or even here in New Jersey and Trenton, and more on that later. But again, it's a crowded field. You do have experience, obviously, running for politics, but by and large, it's a small state geographically, but my goodness, going up and down New Jersey, whether it's the Turnpike, the Parkway, Route 80, Route 33, Route 27, you name it. I mean, you are up and down the state. What's been the feedback so far, whether you're knocking on doors? Thankfully, the weather's getting a little bit warmer. Maybe you're hitting food truck festivals, whatever. But what are you getting the best feedback on? And what's some of the pushback that maybe you're getting on the campaign trail?
I can tell you two things that have been almost universally true as I have gone across the state of New Jersey, is that number one, Republican voters do not like Cory Booker. A lot of Democrats and independents don't like him either. But I will tell you that the range of emotion from Republicans goes from dislike of Cory Booker to abject hatred of Cory Booker. There is a lot of encouragement for me to take him on. And the second thing that I found universally is that people are anywhere from relieved to ecstatic that in me, there is a serious candidate to take on Cory Booker, to actually put a Republican in the U.S. Senate, get him directly elected from this state for the first time since Watergate. I got to tell you, I was at least one place. I was at the ShopRite in Nutley, talking to people, shaking hands, getting signatures. I told a guy that I was running against Cory Booker, and he hugged me. He jumped up and he hugged me. I had that reaction again. A lady at an event in Nutley, you're running against Cory Booker, jumped up and hugged me. People are hungry, especially after what happened last year, for strong Republican leadership that's authentic, that's principled, that can explain what I would do and how I would differ from Cory Booker. They are hungry for that leadership at the top of the ticket this year.
Absolutely. Folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it takes 5 seconds. Like, comment, and share this afternoon's episode with U.S. Senate candidate Alex Zdan here on Real Talk. Again, if you want to drop a comment or question in the comment section, shoot. I'd love to talk.
Fernando, I cannot hear you, so I'm going to assume you're asking about my hair. Yes, it's mine.
Oh.
And I regularly get it cut.
No, again,
I think you're muted, Fernando.
No. I'm not sure if you hear me. Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? I hope do you hear me?
I cannot hear you now.
Okay, let me try this again here. Hold on 1 second. Hold on.
So
how about now, Alex?
But I think that, like I
Alex?
said, the election last year was a big shock to everybody. And it's unfortunate that I found I was talking to a very prominent Republican over the weekend, and it seems like we had a long conversation, but about 20 minutes of it was this therapy session over the 2025 loss. And I think that a lot of people feel this way. I think we really need to reunite this party and revive this party, because as Republicans, a lot of us still have PTSD from Jack's landslide defeat by Governor Sherrill. But this is a new year. This is a new opportunity to turn the page. And I think that Democrats and independents who voted for Governor Sherrill in that landslide last year are already experiencing buyer's remorse at what they have in Trenton. Governor Sherrill did not bring down your utility costs.
Yeah.
Governor Sherrill is busy suing Trump and trying to run for president. Those are her two goals right now. The person who's really running the state is the chief operating officer, Kelly Doucette. Get familiar with who she is, because she is actually running things, while Mikey postures and gets ready to run for president.
All right, Alex, do you hear me now? Do you hear me now, Alex? Alex, do you hear me? I hope.
I'm turning up my volume, Fernando, but I still cannot hear you.
Okay, okay. Hold on 1 second.
Hold on, say it again.
Do you hear me now, Alex?
Yes.
Okay, good. Folks, again, if you're just joining us, like, comment, and share this afternoon's episode here with U.S. Senate candidate Alex Zdan, live on Real Talk. Now, Alex, you mentioned that there is a lot of buyer's remorse, I would say, here in New Jersey. And, I don't go by a lot of the polling because we all know polling is not the exact science it used to be. It really has stopped being it for many, many years now. And when we think about this field that you're running in right now, what differentiates you from everybody else in the field? I know you have a lot of experience. I know you're raising money. You're getting a lot of important endorsements. But what really sets you apart from everybody else that's on the ballot right now?
This campaign, my campaign, is the only truly statewide campaign running for United States Senate this year. We have a presence all up and down the state, east to west, north and south. I'm the only candidate who has spent a significant amount of time in South Jersey. We know South Jersey unfairly gets maligned, has a reputation of being left behind by politicians, including Cory Booker. I'm going to all the places and talking to all the people that Cory Booker has forgotten about in his pursuit of fame and power. What do we know about Cory Booker? He desperately wants to be president of the United States. What did he do when he had his book come out in March? It's a metaphor for the way Cory Booker has been since he was a councilman in Newark. He had a book tour that started in Newark, was there for one night, and then crisscrossed the entire country. Cory Booker has used and abused Newark and New Jersey as a stepping stone for his goals for higher office and for national office. And it's time that we have a United States senator who cares about New Jersey, who works for New Jersey, who works for the people and not for themselves.
And that's a great point because, Cory Booker is every bit the opportunist that we've known him to be, whether it's, grandstanding on the Senate floor. I mean, no one buys that bullshit that he did last year. I mean, give me a break. I mean, listen, I've had ex-girlfriends that don't word salad as much as this guy. And that's what he did on the Senate floor last year. And then to say nothing of the fact that he didn't learn his lesson from 2020 when he supposedly raised money, did very poorly, and quite frankly, he's just not a likable guy. So I think it's fair to say that Woodrow Wilson, somewhere in his grave, is like, yeah, I'm the only guy from New Jersey that's ever going to be elected president. I think that's a pretty safe bet that streak will remain intact. But what's interesting about Booker, Alex, is the fact that this is a guy, you said it before, I don't know of any meaningful legislation that he's introduced on the Senate floor. Maybe there's a post office renamed after somebody and maybe he signed on to that. I don't know. I mean, but quite honestly, and I'm not even trying to be funny about it, I don't recall any meaningful legislation that Cory Booker has signed on to. And it just seems that in a climate where, he and his fellow Democrats are quick to blame Republicans about, quality of life issues, affordability. Listen, here in New Jersey, look no further than the fact that, Democrats have controlled the state legislature for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's not like Republicans like you or I that have had any say in Trenton about what's going on in New Jersey. The highest property tax in the country. The gas tax went up again. By the way, it's to contribute to better roads. But if you ask AAA who rates roads, New Jersey remains in the bottom third in the country. It's crazy. The tolls went up again on the Turnpike and Parkway. So you traveling up and down the state to run for Senate is even more expensive now more than ever. But I think it's the problem with Booker is the optic that he's been coddled by media. You have that experience of talking to him from your capacity as a member of media. What do you think obviously I think we know what his shortcomings are, but what's something that maybe the public doesn't know about right now? Maybe independent voters, they're on the fence about you when it comes to, I don't know about Republican, the usual apathy that exists. What are some shortcomings that maybe we don't know about Cory Booker that maybe need to be talked about?
Yeah, I mean, you are completely right that the media in New Jersey has given Cory Booker a hall pass for many, many years. They have gone along with the love story that this guy has created about himself, whether it was pretending to shovel snow in Newark, whether it was his histrionics on the Senate floor, that filibuster that you correctly pointed out, accomplished absolutely nothing. Look, we're going to take the fight to Cory Booker. We're going to take the fight to him in a way that Republicans have not done before. We're going to define him as an out-of-touch, woke elitist, someone who is more closely aligned with Ana Lilia Mejia, the Israel-hating socialist who just got into Congress, that woke lunatic Ana Lilia Mejia. He's closely aligned with her and more closely aligned with her than he is with the average hardworking, independent person in New Jersey who might be going to work and enjoying a summer day with their family. Cory Booker has no idea what they want or how to serve them, and I do. That's going to be the contrast that we draw. I am standing up for the hardworking people of New Jersey who simply want a better life. Cory Booker, Ana Lilia Mejia, and Mikey Sherrill are in this for themselves, utilizing their hatred of President Trump to boost their electoral fortunes. Look at Ana Lilia Mejia for a moment, and I know you're not a big fan of hers. Who would be? One of the first things she does when she gets into Congress is propose a $25 an hour minimum wage. Now look, $25 an hour, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would like to make that, but that would break the back of businesses across this state that are already struggling under the Democrat policies of Governor Murphy, former Governor Murphy, and Governor Sherrill as of right now. Just that lets you know who Ana Lilia Mejia and by extension Cory Booker are. They are not serious. They do not really care about working people. They care about their agenda items and pursuing this woke socialist vision of progressivism, this Bernie Sanders style that would take down our capitalist economy and endanger the primacy of the United States of America at home and abroad.
No, you said it perfectly. And you want to talk about not being serious. He, along with fellow Democrats, have been adamant since last year going to no Kings rallies, right? But therefore, last week, they're standing for a king in the Hall of Congress. Like they're standing for, and again, nothing against King Charles per se as a human being, fine. But here you are grandstanding, bloviating at all these rallies, talking about, the erosion of democracy and we don't live under a king. We'll never honor kings. We'll never respect a king. Here you are, like looking like an asshole, standing up, saluting a king in the halls of Congress. It's a reminder of the disconnect, Alex, that I think many on the left have in New Jersey. It just seems like their hatred, again, Trump derangement syndrome is a serious thing. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not diagnosing somebody, but the political ailment that is Trump derangement is very real. It just seems like all you have to run on is your hatred for the president. Never mind the fact that you have nothing to run on policy-wise. Like you mentioned Ana Lilia Mejia, and I spoke to her opponent, Joe Hathaway, a few weeks ago during that leading up to the special election. And I'll talk to him again during the summer. And I thought to myself, my goodness, is New Jersey and some districts in this country moving so far left that they don't understand basic economics, that they don't understand basic biology, that they're subscribing to all this woke nonsense that, quite frankly, that's not filling up your gas tank. That's not how you pay your taxes.
The silver lining there is that the people of Congressional District 11, who did not turn out to vote at very high numbers due to a special election on a Thursday, a week after Easter, exactly when Governor Murphy, who scheduled that election, intended it to be, they have an opportunity for a do-over in November. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Ana Lilia Mejia, Congresswoman Mejia, is going to be the nominee. Joe Hathaway is unopposed in the June 2nd primary, and we need him to win. So I wholeheartedly support his effort to send Ana Lilia Mejia packing. And I don't believe that the color of that district, the content of the people in that district was adequately shown in a special election that not a ton of people turned out to vote in. I think that they have another opportunity and that maybe these crazy policies that Congresswoman Mejia is putting forward over the next 6 months will give a sort of buyer's remorse to people in CD11. And I really hope to have Congressman Hathaway sworn in January.
Yeah, and again, it shows that by then there'll be a record. There'll be a congressional record, a voting record for someone like her. But, when we talk about the voting record of Cory Booker in New Jersey, I mean, this is a guy who has been, again, just loves to virtue signal, to grandstand, but not really legislate. I mean, he's a legislator, folks. Again, if you forgot, maybe people at home need a civics lesson here about what Congress does. They're the legislative branch. It just seems that Cory Booker has been so intent on, higher office that he's forgotten to legislate here in New Jersey. I don't care much for his companion in the Senate. Andy Kim. But again, calling balls and strikes fairly. I mean, at least the guy maybe introduces a bill once in a while, maybe not a good one. But Cory Booker, to your point, is all about him. I mean, listen, the idea that he got married, I mean, listen, I at least hold on to hope, because my God, if someone could get married to this idiot, I'm like, maybe, my end game is maybe she's out there somewhere too. Because if this guy can get married, I mean, my God, I mean, the path is still bright for me. But the point is that this is a guy who on a national stage is not liked. And even with his own party, I mean, there's a progressive wing of the party, Alex, that's really growing. We saw that. Now, again, it was a special election, maybe a bit of an anomaly in CD11, but we're seeing some progressives. Listen, I live up here in Hudson County, and I have to deal with the reality of someone like Zohran Mamdani as the mayor of New York City, a city that I frequently visit on a regular basis. But, we're seeing other progressives kind of making noise. And it seems like Cory Booker wants to think he's a progressive. He's not. He's basically the definition of a corporate bought and paid for Democrat. Now, the vote blue no matter who crowd seems to be like, well, we hate billionaires. Well, has anyone raised more money from billionaires than Cory Booker?
No. And here's an interesting thing. You talk about the other U.S. senator that we're stuck with, Andy Kim. I want to go back a few more years, because say what you will about Bob Menendez, and you can say a lot about Bob Menendez. Senator Menendez did deliver projects, grants, money, infrastructure to the state of New Jersey, which is part of the job of the United States Senator. We used to have sort of an informal arrangement, very informal, that every state has 2 U.S. senators. New Jersey always had one that brought home the projects and one that was a show horse. And unfortunately, since the last few years, since 2024, when Andy Kim was elected, we have 2 senators who are interested in posturing and performance acts, as opposed to actually serving the state and bringing back projects that will impact and affect positively the lives of hardworking people in the state of New Jersey.
No, absolutely. And to your point about Senator Menendez, and I know Bob personally, I'm good friends with his son, Rob. I grew up knowing him, and listen, people get corrupted and things happen, and listen, he's serving his time. And, again, I wish him well. I certainly don't want him to die in prison, for God's sakes. I mean, I know him personally. He's a decent person, but again, good people make bad choices, Alex. And that's the moral of that story. But you look at, to your point about what he was doing for years, and yes, delivering on projects. It seems like Andy Kim, who, by the way, folks, don't get it twisted, he's another one who would love higher office too, under the right circumstances, just like Cory Booker. But I just don't see it in the sense of their national appeal. Listen, here in New Jersey, they have certain followers who walk into, the pit of Sarnak, for any of you Return of the Jedi fans, and will just die for him.
You promised me no Star Wars references.
I'm sorry. But, who will just walk through fire for both Booker and Kim. And again, these are guys that on a federal level have not delivered. And, for a state like New Jersey that sends so much tax dollars to Washington, Alex, and doesn't get all of it back when you think about it. These are Cory Booker is a guy you would think he's the senior U.S. senator now, that should be his modus operandi. But again, whether it's getting married and whether that's believable, whatever, his book tour, his grandstanding, this is not a senator that, quite frankly, is delivering for people. And again, it's just like, it's amazing how he's hoodwinked people for so long.
He is. And I would say the word that I would use to sum up how Cory Booker is right now is he's thirsty. He's thirsty for that attention. He wants it so bad, whether it's because he needs the accolades or because he thinks it's going to propel him into the top ranks of Democratic presidential contenders, which will never happen. I don't know, but all I do know is that I am running to be an authentic voice for hardworking people of this state who have not been well represented by Cory Booker, by Andy Kim, by Governor Sherrill, by former Governor Murphy. But I think what we got is maybe even worse in different ways with Governor Sherrill, because Governor Sherrill is another performance artist. Yeah. She goes out there and she's really, they're auditioning for the same job, Fernando, president or vice president. That's right. That's what connects Cory Booker and Governor Sherrill. They're auditioning to be in the White House in Washington, and they're doing whatever it takes, whatever kind of tricks they want to pull, or whatever kind of music they want to sing in order to get that attention, to get on that stage. How many times has Mikey Sherrill sued Donald Trump? I mean, how many times? She's been in office 100 and some days. Sued him 6 or 8 times.
Yeah, it's that's not a good use of taxpayer dollars whatsoever by the governor. But let me ask you this, because again, obviously the June 2nd primary is coming soon. I know you feel good about your chances. Now, should you be successful on June 2nd, obviously you'll be campaigning hard the rest of the summer and the fall. Should you unseat, God willing, Cory Booker in November, what would you like to tackle? Now, again, there's some variables here because Republicans have a 53-47 advantage in the Senate. They're obviously looking to keep the seats that they have and maybe flip some. Obviously, your race would be one to watch out for. What would you, again, depending on the fact that Republicans keep the Senate, which is very likely based on historical precedent. I'm not sure about the House. We'll see. But what would you like to tackle in January, Alex, upon taking office as soon as you hit the Senate chambers?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I do have a couple of things that I would absolutely want to tackle on day one. The first is we've seen that the SAVE Act has been basically stuck at right around 50 votes in the United States Senate. If I'm fortunate enough to unseat Senator Booker and be sworn in January, if the SAVE Act is not law by then, you'll have vote number 51 right here. That's a very clear position that I've taken. Second thing is healthcare. The Democrats shut down the federal government in October and November, ostensibly to get these extensions of these subsidies for Obamacare. Now, we know what they really shut the government down for. It was partially that, but it was also keeping the government shut down until after the New Jersey and Virginia governor's races. Miraculously, everybody came together a couple of days after those elections went the Democrats' way and resolved the government shutdown. But it was ostensibly over healthcare. Democrats got their Obamacare subsidy extensions, complained loudly that Republicans weren't doing enough to help with healthcare, and then have said nothing about healthcare since last year. I want to change that. I'm working with some MAHA groups in DC, the Great American Health Alliance, to help put together the president's healthcare plan, a healthcare plan that will put real help for Americans, that will expand health savings accounts, that will allow you to keep money before it's taxed, before the government gets a crack at it, and put it in a health savings account that will help you not just care for yourself and your loved ones if they get sick, but preventative care so they don't get sick. This plan that I've signed on that I would introduce in the U.S. Senate if I'm sworn in includes expanding health savings accounts to union members and veterans on TRICARE who are not allowed to have these HSAs right now. It would include better healthcare choice. You'd have more control, more decision-making ability for yourself and your family. It would put the American people in the driver's seat of their own health, and it's something I'm very excited about.
You mentioned about the Save America Act, Alex, and quite frankly, I mean, I think it's a reflection, and I don't want to sort of come down harshly on him, but it just seems like a weakness or inadequate leadership by Majority Leader John Thune, and I would not expect that. I was hoping that when the president got reelected in 2024 and took office in January 2025, having both the House and Senate, that this sort of legislation would have no difficulty in passing. But what do you think is at the heart of why the SAVE Act has not passed yet? And again, we're talking about we're in the first week of May, and you would hope that this is something that could really be relevant coming up for these midterm elections this fall in November. What do you think is at the core of why Washington Republicans in both the House and the Senate cannot get this passed?
Well, first of all, I'll say I've never met Leader Thune. I would like to talk to him, and I'm not taking any position on whether or not I'm for him or against him, because I'm just looking to win this primary, win this general, and have those decisions come when they come down the pike if I'm fortunate enough to be in the seat come January. But I think what you're talking about with the SAVE Act is, look, I'll give you a reality check. The Senate is a body that is meant to go slowly. It's meant to be more deliberative. It's under these rules. It's essentially a 18th century body that has a lot of traditions dating back to the 19th and early 20th century. Some of those traditions are good. Some of those traditions are not helpful. But in this world, in our society where we want things on demand, there's a very understandable desire to have things happen quickly. That's in a large part why the American people elected President Trump twice, because they thought the institutions, including Congress, were moving too slowly. And they needed a guy who could cut through the BS and cut through the red tape and deliver for them. I think the frustration that you're saying that is echoed by a lot of people that I've talked to has a lot to do with the structure of the Senate, the 60-vote filibuster threshold, and with a couple of Republicans, namely Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, who are not necessarily aligned with the president's agenda. So I'm hoping to change that. How do you change that? You change the U.S. Senate map. You pick up red seats in blue states. That's how you do it.
Fair enough. Folks, again, if you just joined us live right now, it's 5:30 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is U.S. Senate candidate Alex Zdan here on Real Talk. Folks, drop some comments or questions there in the comment section. We appreciate you doing so. And, of course, share it. Helps the show grow and helps show your support for fearless, independent media here with Jersey First TV. Alex, you have an experience, obviously, as a journalist. Always watched you regularly on News 12 with your show. You had a great interview style, one that, to some extent, I've tried to emulate with my brand of journalism, because I always looked at you as a guy with hard-hitting questions. You were very fair and personal to all your guests. I have to tell you, the entire time that I would watch you for years on News 12, I never knew you were conservative, and I never knew. And again, I think that's a testament too to the fact that you were about business. You were about being fair and objective, and not a partisan and not an enabler, like many really the establishment media are when it comes to coddling the Democrat Party, whether it's in New Jersey or nationally. Having said that, listen, here in New Jersey, obviously we have seen the slow death of statewide media, whether it's been statewide newspapers like the Star Ledger, the Bergen Record, even up by me here in Hudson County, the Jersey Journal, which was around for over 120 years, went out of print last year, as well as the Star Ledger. We still have digital services online behind a paywall. But the bottom line is that here in New Jersey, and even at the national level, we've seen what legislators have thought about PBS as an entity, not wanting to fund it anymore. And there's been this outrage by the woke left and progressives and all the social justice clowns about, hey, whether or not our taxpayer dollars should be going to funding media. Again, as a member of media for so long, what are your thoughts on this sort of slow death of statewide media, and whether or not really taxpayers should be funding this?
Well, look, I thought the Jersey Journal was a big loss when I went out of business, because the city deserves a newspaper that reflects its character.
Yeah.
New York City's got the New York Post. It reflects the character of New York City, like it or not. And the Jersey Journal really reflected that sense of Jersey City and the surrounding towns. And it was just, it was hard to see that one go. Now, I have different feelings about some of the other ones, but the fact of the matter is you're looking at the slow death of a media ecosystem that has been going on for nearly 20 years now. And people think the internet killed newspapers. The answer is kind of. What really killed newspapers was Craigslist. I don't know if you remember this, Fernando, and I didn't do it. I came along like kind of at the tail end of this, but there used to be, kids, this page of the newspaper called the classified ads. Yeah. And if you wanted to sell a couch, if you wanted to rent an apartment, if you wanted to get a job, you had to look at this page that had all of these ads, and each of those ads were placed by individuals or companies who paid money to the newspaper to put them on that page. And when Craigslist came along and everyone could sell their couch, their car, their house on Craigslist for free, it took the guts out of the economic model behind newspapers.
Yeah, that's right.
Circulation and subscriptions were not the number one revenue stream of newspapers. Classified ads were. Now, governments that have to list public notices still do buy ad space in these newspapers, and in a large sense, they're the thing that's keeping the small newspapers afloat, especially the small weeklies and dailies. But that came along in the early 2000s, was exacerbated by the Great Recession that really cleaned out a lot of companies, and that's when the death spiral began. So the smartest thing that some of these papers have done is reincorporate themselves as nonprofits. That's a great way to keep local press alive. I am not on its face opposed to local media. I think it is really important to have a good, competent reporter sitting at the city council meeting, finding out how your money is being spent. I don't feel that the government should subsidize that. I'm not a fan of state-run media. I'm not a fan of PBS, not just because of the obvious liberal bias that it has shown, but I don't think government should be in the news business, because then you raise real questions about the independence of the journalism. It is a tough road that local media has. The nonprofit incorporation is probably the right way to go about it, and some are succeeding and some are not.
And listen, you said it beautifully. And I'll just sort of add to it as well. I mean, I think at some point the ROI just wasn't there. And for as much as the establishment media, which was always coddling Democrats, whether it's at the federal level with PBS or even here in New Jersey with NJPBS, sooner or later, even legislators in Trenton or government officials are like, yeah, it's not worth it anymore. As much as they coddle us, and we all know who the guilty culprits were. I name them all the time: Tom Moran with the Star Ledger, David Cruz with NJ Spotlight News, and others. Charles Stile with Bergen Record. Sooner or later, the chickens come home to roost, and I think it was a self-inflicted wound. And now many of them are sort of in uproar and outrage, like, well, this is ridiculous. We can't let media die. I mean, again, no offense, folks. A lot of them were complicit in helping to kill media. So you're kind of like standing over the corpse and wondering, well, wait a minute, why is there a corpse here? You're kind of partly responsible too. So I always find that interesting. But, at the federal level, again, we saw what happened last year. Both the House and Senate voted to defund PBS. And to some extent, obviously that has trickled down into the local state-run PBS chapters. And of course, here in New Jersey, we're seeing that during budget season when, the budget is getting as big as Chris Christie, quite frankly, maybe Trenton doesn't want to give money to public media. The same thing in Washington, where they may not want to give money to PBS. And I think some Democrats are really adamant about trying to make sure that we fund these blatantly partisan and liberal networks. And quite frankly, I think that, again, I think that time has passed.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the current machinations in Trenton, my question is, who is going to pay for all of this? And to me, it was very telling that some of the testimony that was going on around PBS involved state senators, not Andrew Zwicker, but Senator Beach, connected to George Norcross. And so is George Norcross trying to take over public media in our state? And look, when you talk about giving a pass to certain people, hey, the media that's left is doing what they believe their job to give a pass to Governor Cheryl. I don't really see anybody being tough but fair around her. She's still on her press honeymoon, but we can only do what we can do, which is hold her accountable. You do it. You ask the tough questions. You're tough but fair. I really appreciate what you said about me. But in terms of the statewide broadcast media or even the newspapers, we don't necessarily have that voice anymore. And it is a real shame because there's a lot of stuff that goes on under that gold dome in Trenton that you deserve to know about as a citizen and a taxpayer. And if it simply is in a black hole and no one finds out about it, that's bad for all of us. It's bad for all of us. I don't think that the state should pick up the tab for PBS. As much as they try and blame Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress, you know who really killed PBS in this state? Phil Murphy. Yeah. Phil Murphy, in his final budget, zeroed out the last $750,000 of state money for PBS. Maybe that was a good thing. But all of these people with their PBS tote bags and their lattes who are going after Donald Trump for the demise of public media in New Jersey need to add Phil Murphy to that list. Phil Murphy was the primary culprit of killing public media in New Jersey.
Absolutely. Alex, before I let you go, I know you have to go back to campaigning very shortly, but let me ask you this. Should you be successful on June 2nd, and we know that he doesn't like to get pushback on anything, and listen, this is a very interesting race, and I'm sure one that is on the radar of some of the bigger apparatuses here in New Jersey. For example, my good friend David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe. Do you feel confident that you could be able to solicit a debate with Senator Booker somewhere down the line? I mean, do you feel that you have enough of an infrastructure, that you're raising money, that you're getting endorsements, that you're making that much noise where, hey, this is going to get on the radar of perhaps multiple news apparatuses, whether it's the New Jersey Globe, maybe it's NJ Advanced Media. Do you feel confident that should you get past the primary, that you can perhaps maybe get a debate going with Senator Booker later in the fall?
Yes, I am confident that if I'm successful and I'm the Republican nominee for United States Senate, Senator Booker and I will meet for a debate. I hope it's more than one. And really, I'll tell you right now, if I am successful on June 2nd, one of the things that I will do very shortly after the primary is over is put out a formal call for Senator Booker and myself to have 10 debates around the state right around America's 250th birthday. We need to bring back the Lincoln Douglas debates, real substantive debate about the problems plaguing New Jersey and our nation. I can't think of a better way to honor the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country than a recommitment to open public debate between Republicans and Democrats. And I hope Senator Booker would join me in that.
I would look forward to that for sure. Alex, what's been said that perhaps has been unfair to you during this campaign season by some of your opponents? Again, I don't want to get into mudslinging or anything like that, but has there been anything that is unfair during this campaign season about your campaign by your opponents in this primary?
You see this, Fernando?
Okay.
Dust it off. It's all good.
Okay. I mean, but I'm sure there's something out there or maybe inaccurate. And, now's the opportunity to sort of clarify it or correct it because, it's a little bit of a crowded field. I mean, you are getting endorsements. You are raising money. Again, back in February at the Middlesex County Republican Women's Club brunch for Reagan Day, I mean, you had a great speech. I think you had one of the best speeches of the day. A lot of great speakers that afternoon. And I think you really stood out in that room. But I'm sure it's still not going to prevent opponents in this primary race from just saying, well, Alex is blank, Alex is this, Alex is that. What do you want to clarify, quite frankly, and maybe is untrue during this primary?
I'll tell you what I am encountering, Fernando, that I do want to correct the record on. And this is not the fault of my opponents. It is apathy is the number one greatest weapon that the Democrats have against us right now. There's so many Republicans who understandably are very, very dejected from the loss that Jack Ciattarelli suffered in 2025. I understand how they feel, but now is the opportunity to turn the page. We cannot be apathetic. We can't have people taking a year off because they don't think that we're going to be successful. That's the moment when we need to lock in and push forward. We are Republicans in the state of New Jersey. I'm staying right here. We are going to move this party forward. We're going to leave it in better shape than we found it from 2025. We're going to lead a Republican renaissance in New Jersey, and I know that I am the right candidate to do just that.
You mentioned about moving the party forward. Obviously, a very tall task ahead of the new chair, Christine Hanlon, who was on the show just a few weeks ago. And again, stand-up lady, very bright, really hitting the ground running. But without question, I mean, a tough job is ahead of her, obviously raising money, helping candidates. Have you had any conversations with the chairwoman during this campaign season?
I have let the chairwoman know that I'm happy to help her rebuild this party any way that we can. I saw her last week at an event where she was honored in Ocean County as the Woman of the Year, well-deserved award. And I think that she does have a challenging job, but those of us who are really invested in a strong Republican Party should help the chair to help rebuild the party. Just because you're in a rebuilding year, if you're on a sports team, it doesn't mean that you give up. It means you still try, because that's when you surprise your opponents.
That's right. Having said that, should you not be successful on June 2nd, will you endorse the subsequent winner in the Republican field?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, again, there you have it. I'm going to let him get back to campaigning. He's dedicated a few minutes of his time during this busy campaign season. Again, Alex, before I let you go, important URLs, websites where you can donate, whether it's money or time, to your campaign.
Yeah, we got a great website. I encourage everybody to check it out. It's got a memorable name. It's alexbeatsbooker.com, alexbeatsbooker.com. You can go there and find out more about my platform. You can donate. You can sign up for volunteering, learn a little bit more about our events. We've got one on Thursday at the Raritan Yacht Club in Perth Amboy that I'm really looking forward to. So it's going to be a great month and a great time ahead of this summer.
As a matter of fact, I'll be seeing you Thursday because I'm friends with John Tobacco. Many moons ago, appearing on Liquid Lunch with him. Actually filled in for him a couple of times when I had to host a show for him. So John Tobacco's a great guy. I look forward to seeing you in Perth Amboy on Thursday. But again, before I let you go, Alex, thank you for your time. You're, again, great candidacy. I'm looking forward to talking to others during this primary field. We'll see what happens on June 2nd. Certainly, pulling for you. You're a good guy. You've always
Thank
been
you.
fair with me, but I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
So again, Fernando, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for what you do. Look, our party is in a difficult position, but it doesn't have to stay there. We need to all work together to revitalize the Republican Party in New Jersey with the goal of defeating woke progressive Democrats like Cory Booker and Ana Lilia Mejia in November, and having a strong Republican Party that represents the traditional interests and values of hardworking Americans who love their families and want to see their state prosper. That's why I'm running. I'm running for the United States Senate because Cory Booker has not served the people of New Jersey. He is all talk and no action. Cory Booker has made New Jersey sick, and New Jersey is sick of Cory Booker.
Well said there. Folks, he's Alex Zdan, U.S. Senate candidate running in the Republican primary coming up on June 2nd. You have choices, folks, here in New Jersey. Alex Zdan is one of them, and it's important to get Cory Booker out of office this November. Certainly, Alex, I appreciate your time. Get back to campaigning, man, and I'll see you Thursday, and I'll see you on the campaign trail during 2026. Thank you so much for joining us again on Real Talk.
See you Thursday, Fernando. May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. Take care. Folks, good stuff there with Alex Zdan, U.S. Senate candidate, out there campaigning. I love the Jedi reference there. May the 4th be with you. Appreciate that as a fellow Star Wars fan for sure. Folks, again, it is 5:50 here on the East Coast. If you just joined us live, great interview this afternoon with Alex Zdan, U.S. Senate candidate, a guy running in the upcoming June 2nd primary in the Republican Party. A bit of a crowded field. A guy who I've gotten to know, obviously, from our time in media, and certainly a guy who has been running up and down the state, along with other Republicans during this busy primary season. We'll see what happens coming up on June the 2nd. Again, folks, you have choices in New Jersey coming up on June 2nd. And let's get Cory Booker out of office. It's that simple. I mean, this is a guy who's a corporate Democrat, takes AIPAC money, takes money from billionaires. For a guy that's so against billionaires, and a guy that is, we have to go to no king's rallies and make sure that we denounce a king. Well, he was very happy there, like a trained seal at the circus, clapping away last week in the halls of Congress when King Charles was there in Washington, happened to cheer for that king. Well, it's not funny about the levels of hypocrisy we've gotten used to with Cory Booker in New Jersey, folks. Pretty embarrassing, if you ask me. So once again, I do want to thank Alex Zdan for his time here. Obviously, he's on the campaign trail, on the road, and I appreciate him dedicating a few minutes here to Real Talk, your leader for fearless independent media here in New Jersey on the Jersey First Television Network. So again, folks, if you just joined us live, again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode as I just spoke with U.S. Senate candidate Alex Zdan here on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Folks, it's a busy campaign season. I'll keep talking to candidates. I have a special announcement coming up later this week about a potential debate night in the 3rd Congressional District. Stay tuned for that, folks. I'll have some news later on this week once details are finalized, but stay tuned for that as your favorite opinion journalist and, of course, the 10-time Premier Award-winning journalist, Fernando Uribe, going up and down the state during this election season as well, making sure that not only spreading the word for Jersey First TV, but really spreading the word for Fernando Uribe Media and Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Again, your leader for fearless independent media here in the Garden State. Folks, you know what time it is. It's time for final thoughts. And it's a jam-packed one, so I hope you're sitting down because I got a lot to get off my chest tonight. And folks, when I talk about some of the bad actors here in New Jersey, I mention often, there's no shortage of bad actors here in the Garden State, whether it's in academia, whether it's in beta males like Joe Amaditis from the Center for Cooperative Media over there at Woke State University in Montclair, useless journalists like Tom Moran, who somehow is trying to stay relevant, and quite frankly, he's doing a really, really shitty job of it. Or Alan Steinberg. I mean, I know it's past his bedtime. I think it's a little before 6 p.m. Eastern time. I'm pretty sure Sleepy Al is, nice and cozy under his blanket right now, but I'm sure he'll watch the replay. He can't help himself. Or other sort of, useless journalists in our echo chamber here. For example, Chucky, Uncle Chucky there. Charles Style with the Bergen Record and NordJersey.com. Of course, resident pothead Matt Friedman with Political New Jersey. And quite frankly, folks, does anybody read the New Jersey playbook? Quite frankly, I doubt it. If anybody with any sense, good sense, or having any sort of political IQ is reading the Morning Monitor from the New Jersey Monitor with editor Terrence McDonald, or the Hudson County Review with John Robert Hines, the editor of the Hudson County Review. Matter of fact, also, because you forgot, fellow member of the Pinnacle here in Hudson County and a fellow Rutgers alumnus. So those are some good newsletters I would think you would want to read every morning when you wake up when it comes to really good journalism here in the Garden State. Or like, let's say, useless government employees making six figures and doing nothing. I don't know. People like Maria Rodriguez come to mind and others here in the state. Or other useless activists like Amy Torres. Have you seen her lately? Well, someone's not summer ready. Ouch. Or other useless activists in New Jersey like Kayla Burrell or Hetty Rosenstein or Lauren Albrecht or Patty Campos Medina, you name it. Or other useless journalists, women like Jay Lassiter and Max Pizarro and David Cruz, or other, or elected officials that, quite frankly, folks, serve no purpose other than serving themselves. And when I think about that, when I think about grandstanding and make it all about themselves and not a cause, well, folks, let's be honest, who comes to mind are Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan. I mean, look how insufferable this is. I mean, again, folks, I want to keep it a family-friendly show. But if you know me and you've talked about Katie Brennan in my presence, I think you know exactly the words that we can use to describe Katie Brennan. But what an insufferable clown these two are. And interesting of them to open an office in the Journal Square area of Jersey City. I don't know, maybe getting some flack for not having constituent hours. Because let's be honest, folks, I mean, do these two idiots meet anybody on a regular basis? But you know who do meet constituents regularly? And I talked about this in an op-ed that was published by multiple very reputable news sites. The Hudson County Chronicles, the Hudson County View, the Jersey City Times. Now, unless you want to talk shit about them, but I doubt you will, these are reputable news sites running a reputable op-ed. And I was and again, I don't want to sort of revisit it, but folks, let's be fair about who Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan are. These are virtue signaling children who grandstand, are more concerned with social media engagement and clicks and views than actually meeting with constituents. Okay, when we talk about elected officials who are actually meeting with constituents here in New Jersey, or more specifically up here in North Jersey, in Hudson County, folks, I think about State Senator Brian Stack in the 33rd Legislative District. A guy who meets with over 100 constituents a day. Okay, folks, if these two retards behind me there meet 100 people during the course of their term, that'll be a miracle. Okay? Or Assemblyman Larry Weinstein in the 33rd Legislative District, who I had the privilege of seeing yesterday at a wake for a family member of one of my good friends, Jimmy Barricato, out of Weehawken. My condolences once again to the Barricato family on their loss over this weekend. But I got to speak with the Assemblyman last night. And I was like, listen, you're meeting with constituents. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're meeting with taxpayers and your constituents, which is more than I can say for Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan. They're more concerned with ribbon cuttings. And folks, I mean, you can just smell the cat piss right through this picture, okay? I can almost hear the estrogen coming out of the voices of the beta males in this picture, okay? Don't take my word for it. Go on their social media and take a look at some of the winners walking around there. Folks, the smell in there must have stunk. Okay? I mean, between Ravi Bala and that yellow stain on the same dress shirt he wears all the time, or just the cat ladies there. I mean, folks, it must have been embarrassing just being in that room. But don't think for one second Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala weren't bothered by my op-ed. You know they were. And if that didn't give them a complex, folks, you're lying or you're kidding yourselves. Because there are legislators that meet with their constituents on a regular basis. I just mentioned State Senator Brian Stack, State Assemblyman Larry Weinstein. As a matter of fact, State Assemblyman Jerry Walker out of the 31st Legislative District. Okay? Meeting with constituents, hearing their concerns about what's going on, about whether or not it's realistic to lower property taxes in Trenton, about addressing utility costs, or about spending in Trenton. All Robbie Balla and Katie Brennan care about, and by the way, let's be very fair, I said it in my op-ed, and I'll say it again. They're more concerned wasting gas, which I'm pretty sure is on their campaign account or at your expense, to travel to Roxbury, New Jersey, to, bloviate and virtue signal about an ICE detention facility. Does anybody forget that day on a Saturday morning when instead of meeting with constituents, these two retards are in Roxbury, New Jersey, bloviating and grandstanding and freezing their asses off in front of the other beta males and cat ladies and all the woke fools there? No, of course. But ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled by this theatrical bullshit by Katie Brennan and Robbie Balla. Listen, if they meet with 100 constituents by the end of their term, that'll be a miracle. And that's saying something because these are two lazy people. Katie Brennan's lazy. Okay? Robbie Balla is lazy. We learned that during his 8 years as mayor, in which he left Hoboken as an absolute shithole with their budget and everything else. Okay? Folks, don't get it twisted. Okay? This little theatrical presentation of opening up a new office, that's cool. That gives that little chunky girl behind Katie Brennan something to do besides order Uber Eats or something. But we're hoping that maybe they'll schedule some appointments and talk to constituents and do some real legislating, not introducing bullshit bills in Trenton about, whether or not ICE agents can seek employment in New Jersey or about wearing masks. Folks, have you noticed the federal government just wiped their ass with that legislation? And rightfully so. But don't tell that to Robbie Balla and Katie Brennan. They'd rather virtue signal than actually legislate, which is what the voters in the 32nd Legislative District voted them in for. Maybe someone should remind them. I don't know. I try to remind them all the time because I know that they watch this show. I know that they read my op-ed, and I'm sure it pissed them off. And rightfully so, because you're lazy. You're both lazy. And these little theatrics of opening an office, that's cool. But how about you actually meet with constituents? And I bet you folks, the minute that they do, they're going to go on Instagram Live or on TikTok or on X or on Facebook because they want you to believe that they're actually working. Folks, it's bullshit. These two lazy mother effers work about as much as the New York Mets are going to make the playoffs. All right? I don't know what's more believable. Actually, neither is believable. Okay? But that's the good laugh we got last week, seeing these theatrics from Katie Brennan and Robbie Balla. Folks, these two children, if you think they can't be any more insufferable, they never disappoint. Because just when you think they can't be children, just when you think they can't grandstand anymore, these two retards find a way to surprise us all. Speaking of grandstanding and children, yes, folks, we saw it last Friday on May Day, where a bunch of woke activists and social justice clowns and all the cat ladies and all the feminists and all the beta males whose voices shriek with the sound of estrogen coming from their voices. You saw that last Friday walking down downtown Jersey City. And a time of day when people just want to get home from work after a long week because, they're actually working, which is more than I can say for these clowns walking in Jersey City. But here's some footage. And again, a shout out to Dan Aloa and Dan Israel, who I'm sure maybe were there. And again, I like them personally, but don't get it twisted. I'm pretty sure if they were there, I know Dan Israel was there, but if Dan Aloa was there too, I'm pretty sure their dicks were as hard as rocks. Just seeing all this social justice buffoonery marching down downtown Jersey City. Again, I just want to give the context here. I like both Dans, but it doesn't mean that their dicks weren't hard standing there watching this demonstration of children. All right? And these bullshit messages about, taxing billionaires, which, by the way, a lot of these made out signs and everything else were probably provided by billionaires that are funding a lot of these nonprofits or these unions. Folks, don't get it twisted. Okay? But what's interesting is, obviously, and again, a shout out to John Hines, the editor-in-chief of the Hudson County View, for his reporting on this story, obviously. But let's look at some footage from last Friday in downtown Jersey City. my bad. I'm sorry. Wrong footage, but it's pretty much the same, but my bad here. Here you go. Bro, the sign is almost as tall as the guy. What the hell is this? Some of these cat ladies walk. This is the most cardio some of these women have done all year. I mean, let's be honest. Oh, look at these little white liberal women. Oh. Is there anything more toxic, folks, than white liberal women? Yeah, you can tell that girl has a Mr. Healer. Easy. This one over here. Yup. Look at this over here. Folks, I mean, and I get it, I'm sure that Dan Israel was in his glory, watching this nonsense here this past week. And you saw some of the signs there. Free them all, tax the rich, socialism works. Folks, it's all bullshit. And on a Friday afternoon, late afternoon, when people just want to get home after a long day work, and folks, I know it because I work 40 hours a week, if not more. I know the struggle. I know about full-time employment. I know about working those 40 hours. Sometimes people just want to get home and relax, and they can't because, of course, I'm sure they had to take some detours because these group of retards are just marching and they don't even know what they're marching for. Folks, that's the best way to summarize the woke left today, not just nationally, but here in New Jersey. And all these progressives that claim to have their hearts in the right place, but their heads are up their asses. That's been consistent. We've proven that. When they're outraged about the enforcement of federal immigration law, or they're out there screaming about no kings and the erosion of democracy and tyranny isn't coming. Were all you idiots with that same energy from 2020, 2021, and 2022 here in New Jersey when the former governor had the state shut down longer than it should have been? When schools were shut down longer than they should have been? When businesses in some cases were required to force people to produce vaccine cards to go eat dinner? Otherwise, they couldn't go out. Or the corrupt NJEA and the AFT had somehow the governor's ear and the state senate president's ear and the assembly speaker's ear and kept schools shut down longer. Was that not tyranny? Was that not the original democracy? Where was all that energy? Tell me, please, where was all that energy? About all you idiots out there with, getting your 10th booster and you're still getting sick. Like, que me de comer mierda. Come on, get out of here. I'm not vaccinated and I'm fine. Okay? Where was all this outrage about, hey, you can't go have dinner because you don't have a vaccine card, whether it's here in New Jersey or New York? Where was all this energy about, democracy and tyranny and a king? But meanwhile, a lot of you idiots are there saluting a king last week in Washington when King Charles visited the nation's capital. Do you realize how stupid you all look with the levels of hypocrisy that you exhibit? I mean, again, folks, you can't take these people seriously. It's a clown show, which again, when you think about the footage Dan Israel took, I mean, folks, how is it any different what we saw on May Day with these campesinos and these feminists and these cat ladies and all these other retards walking down? How is it any different than this? Folks, where's the difference? Can someone say it to me? Can someone explain to me what's the difference between that footage I just showed you and what Dan Israel took last week? Folks, there's no difference. It's the same children, virtue signaling, grandstanding with their usual bullshit. But what else is it with progressives and the woke left? Not just in Hudson County, but throughout New Jersey. Speak about useless, let's get to Uncle Dave. And yes, I took a break last week because I like, folks, it's fun to pick on Uncle Dave because the level of hypocrisy that this Este Come Mierda likes to exhibit on a regular basis is quite humorous to me. Now, let me be fair about something because it really did bother me last week when we learned that the studios at NJPBS closed its doors last week at the Gateway Center. And let me be very fair too, because I had the privilege of visiting the Gateway Center on multiple occasions when I was asked to be on Reporters Roundtable when then the GOAT of journalism in this state, the late, great Michael Aaron, invited me. Well, the producers did, but Michael Aaron understood and recognized, and I'm grateful forever to him, about my broadcasting talent, about my journalistic talent, and invited me to Reporters Roundtable to contribute. And I'll forever be grateful to Michael Aaron because we should all want to be the journalist that Michael Aaron was. Now, some people haven't gotten that memo, or some people have been in the business forever and still are shitty journalists. Case in point. But this did bother me at the end because it reminds me that there are some good people that, quite frankly, won't be working there anymore. And of course, folks, if you ever watch Uncle Dave's show, and who really does, other than, I don't know, his wife and kids and maybe a few select people. But as it was brought to my attention, I have to give some flowers to NJPBS, NJTV, and for the good people that, unfortunately, the doors were closed last Friday. Now, we know that NJTV and NJPBS will continue remotely until July 1st when it shuts its doors completely because of a lack of state funding. So I'm not going to bore you with some of the nonsense from his show, which, like, who really watches that? But for the point is, this was an interesting dynamic at the end, trying to solicit some sympathy about what happened with media when we all know that David Cruz has been complicit in destroying media, or at least the public's trust in media, because he's been blatantly dishonest. But let's go with this.
Finally, today we say so long to the Agnes Varys studio in Newark, home to NJTV and then NJPBS. The nightly news will be virtual going forward. For more than a decade, my colleagues did a lot of amazing things out of that Newark studio. I made a lot of friends. And despite me being a little cantankerous at times.
No, folks, not a little cantankerous. Folks, has there been a more insufferable douchebag than David Cruz in media for some years now? I can only imagine these poor people having to soportar este imbécil for as many years as they had to. I mean, folks, how this guy's remained married is a miracle to me. I mean, shout out to his wife for having to endure this asshole in David Cruz. But, shout out to the crew there. Good people, I'm sure, who hopefully will bounce back and land on their feet somewhere because they're all talented over there. Not David Cruz, but certainly everybody there. But, kind of interesting here.
The team there always had my back. Thinking of you guys today and thanking you for all of it. Press score's done for the week. Aaron Morrill, Jelani Gibson, Fred Snowflake, good to see you all. Thank you.
Yeah, 3 good journalists. I can't say the same for Uncle Dave, but, what's interesting about this, folks, about this attempt at a sob story by Uncle Dave, right? And I've talked about this at length in recent weeks. As we all know, and my guest tonight, Alex Zdan, said it perfectly. In the last state budget, under then Governor Phil Murphy, the state legislature decided to only allocate very minimal money for state media, which subsequently was NJPBS. Now, people in Trenton, and what's interesting, folks, is that people like David Cruz and other members of the establishment media in Trenton for years coddled Democrats and progressives and the woke left with a plethora of atrocious policies that have destroyed New Jersey. No pushback from David Cruz about coddling illegals and how much and the billions of dollars we spend of taxpayer money to coddle illegals in the state. Okay? Or other bullshit projects. No pushback at all from Uncle Dave or others like Tom Moran, Chucky, Little Maddie, whatever. and others, Max Pizarro, okay, Jay Lassiter, you name it, Bob Henley, excuse me. Don't want to confuse him with former lead singer of the Eagles. But isn't it interesting that the same people, led by David Cruz, who were complicit in having New Jersey basically cut off funding for media, doesn't that seem more about the ROI and how shitty it's been? How New Jersey residents started having mistrust for media. Now, they've always had, because the liberal media hasn't been trustworthy for as long as I've been alive. Okay, and I'm 50 years old. But for most of my cognitive years, I've never remembered the liberal media being responsible. And for someone like David Cruz, who's like 87 years old, who's been in media longer than I've been alive, you would think that somewhere along the line he would have gotten the memo, or something would have gone off in his brain. And I know that critical thinking isn't Uncle Dave's strong suit. But the reality is, folks, that people have lost faith in media. And when you have propagandists masquerading as journalists, case in point, people are going to lose faith in media and the way that media delivers news. And we saw that. Okay? My guest tonight had a perfect example. Cory Booker, who's been the U.S. Senator for too long, who's been one of the more enabling accomplices of coddling Cory Booker. Este imbécil. If you ever watched the segment with him, I mean, you would think Uncle Dave was going to blow a load in his pants just, coddling up to Cory Booker. Never a hard question, never holding him accountable. How is that journalism, David? And you can talk all the shit you want about me and about my brand of award-winning journalism, by the way, about a show that gets traffic. And isn't it funny, folks? El mundo da mucha vuelta. And for a guy like David Cruz, who would talk so much shit about my podcast and my journalistic abilities, well, guess who's trying to be a podcaster? Here's the reality check, David. You're doing a shitty job because you're trying to get traffic. Bullshit. You're not getting anything. Okay? You're getting a menu from a nearby restaurant in that shithole part of Jersey City you live in, but you're not getting traffic or views. And for a guy that talked so much shit about independent media and podcasting, that's not real journalism. Guess who's trying at it now? Guess who's trying to be an independent journalist at the age of 88? Yes, Uncle Dave, folks. That's not going to end well for him. But for a guy that is trying to solicit sympathy for, how can we ever think about killing media? David, you were a willing accomplice in killing media. More specifically, the public trust in media. So look in the mirror before you start looking around about who to blame. Look in the mirror. It starts with you. Propagandists like David Cruz, Tom Moran, Ron Zettlinger, and the rest of these idiots in this retarded bunch. You have no one to blame but yourselves. And that says a lot, because you should be ashamed of yourselves. But then again, did David Cruz ever have any shame? Highly doubt it. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, special comment here tonight. We're about to wrap up here on the program. It is May the 4th. It is Star Wars Day. But more importantly, it is the 53rd wedding anniversary for my mom and dad. Many of you wondering where I get my good looks from. You can look no further than my mom, Sita Uribe. And you're wondering where I get my brains from. I get it from my dad, Fernando Uribe Sr. But to the best couple that I know, happy 53 years together of marriage, folks. I mean, that's quite a feat in itself. So to my parents, to many more, to 53 more years, who are as loving, as supportive, as encouraging. Yeah, they're annoying. If you ever watch Seinfeld, folks, you ever watch Jerry's parents and George Costanza's parents like spliced into one couple? Those are that's my mom and dad. But I could not ask for two better human beings to have as parents. So today on your wedding anniversary, mom and dad, happy anniversary, Feliz Aniversario, and to many more filled with love, laughter, and good times in the Uribe Gonzalez family. Once again, happy anniversary to my parents, Fernando and Cita Uribe, on 53 years of marriage, and to many more. Love you, Mom and Dad. Also, folks, I want to send a shout out to everybody and thank you for yet another successful month of traffic here on Real Talk. Over 100,000 views here, all organic on the show, here on Real Talk. And for, some Mickey Mouse journalists out there with your little Mickey Mouse shows and your little Mickey Mouse traffic, folks, nothing Mickey Mouse over here. It's real traffic with real conversations, with real dialogue, because guess what? It's Real Talk. So, once again, thank you to everyone who tunes in. It helps make the show successful. I love you all, fans, friends, family, even the haters, because I know you watch. I know you watch. All you other comediantes locally, like Hector Segura, Alex Trillo, let me guess who else, Justin Rivera, all you other retards. I know you tune in because, what else do you have to do? Like, what, talk to your ugly wives? Highly unlikely. But you tune in every week and you help make these numbers possible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone that continues to make Real Talk a success and the leader in fearless, independent opinion journalism. Folks, before we call it a night here, I started the show and I'll say it again. May the 4th be with you. Yes, this May the 4th. It is Star Wars Day. As you can see, I am a dedicated Jedi Knight. And folks, for so many of us that grew up watching Star Wars, for so many of us that grew up watching these iconic characters of Yoda and Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and Darth Vader and the Emperor, folks, they all shaped us in some way or form. They shaped our childhood, they've shaped our adolescence, and they've shaped our adulthood. Whether it's the original trilogy, the prequel to the trilogy, or the sequel to the original trilogy, folks, we all enjoy Star Wars. We all use it on our daily basis. We all use terminology that we've gotten used to from the Star Wars universe. So to all of you today, may the 4th be with you, and happy Star Wars Day to all my fellow Star Wars fanatics here on Jersey First TV. And that's our show for tonight, folks. One thing I want to thank Alex Zdan, U.S. Senate candidate running in the upcoming June 2nd Republican primary. Thank you to Alex for his time. As you can see, he was out and about, really out there talking to potential voters coming up for the June 2nd primary. Folks, it's election season. We'll still be talking to candidates leading up until June 2nd. Stay tuned this week. A special announcement coming up about election 2026 in New Jersey, led by yours truly, again, your favorite journalist, Fernando Uribe. And of course, folks, I can't say enough. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode. And I really thank you for supporting us. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and X, and certainly subscribe to us on YouTube, not just for Real Talk, but brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap that have returned to the Jersey First Television Network. Check it out, folks. You definitely will not be disappointed. Of course, we get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud. Check out Jersey First. You'll never be disappointed. Always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, unafraid, it's always Real Talk right here on the Jersey First Television Network. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media, and certainly your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's the most handsome face that runs the place. That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. May the 4th be with you. Please party responsibly. Let's go Lakers. Let's go Knicks during the NBA playoffs. And let's go Yankees on a somber note. Shout out and prayers to the family of John Sterling, the voice of the Yankees. For as long as I've been alive, and many of us have been alive, let's go win it for John this year during the 2026 season. So once again, folks, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next Monday night live here for this edition of Real Talk on Jersey First TV. Folks, thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.